Hello and welcome to the LFCS Talks podcast. My name is Troy Beyer, and today I have Danny Sanchez and Andres Jimenez, two of our amazing longtime high school teachers and administrator. And we're going to talk about what's going on after high school. Like, what are the options after high school? What does four-year college look like? Two-year college? What does taking a gap year look like? What does going straight into the workforce look like? What are the pluses and minuses of each of those? Then we're going to get into how artificial intelligence is impacting our students and it's impacting the workforce in the next 5 and 10 years. Might even get into how we're struggling to kind of keep up with this and how we're working on trying to make sure we're preparing our students for this new future that we're all going into, whether we like it or not. This tech is here. It's changing the workforce. So anyway, I'll let these gentlemen introduce themselves. Danny, how long have you been here? What do you do? Explain.
Yes, been here for the past 16 years. I've done everything from teaching to coaching to counseling and now assistant principal. So it's been a journey. This is family. I've had 2 kids here. Second one's going to graduate. This place is home, and basically it's family.
Awesome.
I'm Andres Jimenez. I've been teaching here for 8 years. I have 2 young children, one in kindergarten and one in 3rd grade at the school, and then I have 2 other kids that go to a different school. I love teaching here. The thing that brought me here was actually to the high school was the leadership program. So I love the focus on character.
Yeah.
That's really what drew me to the school, and so that was a big draw for me. I currently teach the 9th grade science, but I have taught chemistry, I've taught earth science, and I also enjoy teaching the AP physics.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, gentlemen. So let's jump into the questions. So first question I kind of pre-loaded you guys with was, what are the after high school graduation routes? What are our options going, after high school? Kids graduate. What are some different routes that you guys have seen?
Well, since I was a counselor and that's been my world for a while, the basic ones that everyone knows about is we got, the 4-year university route, we got the community colleges or JCs that they call them, military, trade school, art and beauty school. The kids recently have been kind of calling, when they don't really have a plan yet, they call it the workforce or sometimes a gap year. That's a little bit different depending on who the student is.
Right.
So those are the main routes that they have that they choose afterwards. How to get there? Well, we prepare them in a lot of ways to get there with all the A to G classes, every kind of opportunity that they have. I'll share some stats in a bit. But I think what separates us from other schools, because every school will do this. Every school will have a graduation route with what credits you need to get to that certain point. But what we have is we teach them, more importantly, to be lifelong learners. And that's going to be the thing. Like, we want them to continue to learn. Because right now the seniors are about 5 weeks away, including one of my seniors, 5 weeks away from graduating. A lot of them just want to be done. But we want to encourage them to not be done learning, because learning is a continuous thing.
Right.
And so as Mr. Jimenez was sharing, our leadership programs teach them values such as learning for a life, a long life, so you can continue to advance. Also, one of the things we'll touch is about grit and teaching them to have character. And those are the things that we want that are embedded into our plans. So, basic, those are the plans that usually people go to. Along the way, there are some special things that we see. We've had other alumni come and they went down a certain path, and all of a sudden they own these businesses or they're entrepreneurs and they do things. I'm like, how did you get there? And it might not even be what we talked about, but what it was they were lifelong learners. They had grit, and they figured things out. And so
Totally.
That's what I love about what we get to do. And those are basically the routes that we have.
Right. So what does it take? So what are the different options, right? So if you wanted to go to a UC school, what does that even mean? Let's really quickly go over the nuts and bolts, because every school has these options, but what are the nuts and bolts? How do you get there?
So you need 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of a foreign language. You got the sciences, 3 years of lab science. You have to have these classes called A to G that are certified by the UC system. And we have that program. You mark the boxes. You have to have at least C's in all those classes. There's no D's allowed. And then from there you go into, and you apply for whether it's San Diego State, UC San Diego, or any of the California State UC schools, or even higher private schools.
Right. So that's the minimum requirement to get into one of those state schools, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And we have the ADG, all that kind of stuff.
We have that. And again, we've had over the last 10 years or so, Lots of kids get into those. I mean, not and again, I'll share some of those stats.
What are the other options? So let's say a student didn't fully meet the A to G requirements, but they met graduation requirements. Or are there other 4-year options like private, or like what other options are out there out of state? What are the options for?
Yeah. So popular choices for our kids have been private schools.
Okay.
And so whether it's a private religious school or just a private school in general, whether it's a Cal Baptist, a Westmont, a Biola, Vanguard, or even going a little bit further out into the Midwest, whether it's a Liberty University out in Virginia, kids have done some pretty amazing things. And some of them do pay out-of-state tuition as well, so they'll go out of state and meet those requirements.
Got it.
And so having the A to G, the highest tier that we have of graduation requirements, sets them up for it. But even when you don't have it, there's still other schools that will accept them and get in as well.
Got it. It's awesome. What about if you want to go to a 2-year college after high school? Like if you're not really sure, but you do want to go to school, what's the 2-year route?
Yeah, so that is basically everything that I was just talking about.
Yeah.
You could take away a couple things like maybe that 4th year of math, or a foreign language.
Got it.
And one other thing, but basically all of our kids that graduate will be fully prepared for a JC, junior college.
Yeah, because I mean that's a high school diploma. Like
it's a high school diploma.
If you complete the requirements, and really Liberty, our requirements are a little higher because we have our Senior X and stuff like that. We really want to prepare kids for success.
Yeah.
And that's what Senior X comes into. It's like, we've had how many kids have come back and said to us, man, I hated it when I went through it, but this has prepared me. Like it's hilarious how prepared I am to present and succeed in college just because I had to go through that Senior X situation. Have you guys ever heard that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a big thing that I would also just emphasize with any of the requirements is just to students not to be in a hurry to get there.
Yeah.
Enjoy high school too. And having those conversations in class, we're kind of encouraged as teachers to do that. Ask them about what their future plans are. Have them start thinking about it. I'm currently teaching freshmen, and I'm asking them now.
Right.
So they can start thinking about those things like, do they want to meet these requirements? Do they want to, push towards that, or do they want to do something else? Go do our internship and go try something. And if you like it, great, you can start applying and go to college. If not, maybe there's a different route.
Right.
So just have those conversations, as parents have those conversations, as teachers have those conversations, so that they can start thinking about them. If we don't ask them, they're just going to think thoughts in their own head.
Cool.
And they may not be good. They might be good. I don't know.
Right. So this is a question that there's all kinds of stats and all kinds of numbers on that are kind of terrible for colleges, that are the enrollment rate versus the graduation rate.
Okay.
And I'm not going to quote it because I forget them, but it's like there's a huge percentage of students that start in 4-year schools that do not finish, or that change mid-route, or that have to do all this kind of stuff. So I guess my question is, what is the reality that an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, because really most of these kids are 17, 16, verging 17 by the time they're choosing their college and choosing this major, they're going into a 4-year school. What's the reality that a 17-year-old knows what they want to do for the rest of their life, therefore can go and spend tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, we get you have a lot. I see your stats there on what is that number?
The scholarship?
Scholarships, yeah. I see your scholarship number. So there's a lot of scholarships a kid gets going into college.
Yeah.
But this is tens of thousands of dollar investment into your education. What's the reality that a 17-year-old knows what they want to do for the rest of their life, and that this 4-year degree is going to lead to a master's or lead to a job that they're going to have for the rest of their life?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it depends, because I worked with a lot of different kids, and even my own 2 kids, one who's a sophomore in college and one going into college. And that has kind of been the big question for both of them. My sophomore, who's going to be an engineer at Cal Poly, he had a plan, and his plan is to do that and to pursue it and to get a degree, and to know that you need a degree to get the kind of job that you want.
Right.
My other one is a more creative route, going into music and graphic design. And so we've been talking about those kind of things, like what's the need, and later we'll probably get into AI regarding that realm. But she does have a plan to be a business owner, and so knowing that no matter what happens or what you learn, there's got to be a plan. So the reality is the kids don't really know what's going to happen unless they're being educated whether it's by their parents.
Yeah.
And not everyone is going to have that parental support. I didn't when I was younger. I just was thrown out. And my main reason for going to college is I didn't want to be at home, and I wanted to do something, get away
Right.
and learn.
Right.
It took me a few years to realize what I was meant to do, called to
Right.
do. And so I went through the ringer a bit. I think all of us kind of did in a way. But I think the reality is kids don't know unless they're being educated, informed, hopefully by their parents. But if not, that's why we're here at school, to do that and to help them as much as we can.
Right. What are your thoughts?
I would just say, add to that, what I was kind of hinting at earlier was just don't be in a hurry. And so I think one example is I was planning on being a doctor. And so I looked up the stats of how many college graduates, so undergrads, go straight into med school. And
Right.
so I think med schools have caught on to, what you're talking about,
Right.
that these students don't know what they want. And some of the kids that are on this pre-med track, they might graduate with a biology degree or biochem, and then they think, oh, I'm going to jump right into med school.
Right.
But the reality is, if you go look at the stats, it's around 10% or less actually go straight from undergrad into med school.
Right.
Med schools realize that they don't want to give a spot to someone that's not sure, 100% sure. And the same goes from high school to
Right.
undergrad is, they don't want to just give a spot to someone that's not 100% sure what they
Right.
want to do. And to answer the question, I mean, some of the students may not know what they want to do, but
Right.
if we, like I said, if we start them early and asking those questions, as freshmen, as sophomores, we go, hey, what are you
Right.
interested in? What do you want to do? Why don't you go try that? Why don't you go interview someone that does that? If we encourage them to do that, they'll have a better understanding of what it's required, and if they want to dump all that money into university, if they want to go do a trade, whatever their course is,
Right.
and they'll be better off for that. And we encourage them that through Senior X.
Yep.
Go explore something.
Exactly.
So
Right.
the more that we're involved, the more that we're guiding them,
Right.
and asking those questions, the more they're going to start thinking about them. Because
Awesome.
they'll just sit on social media and just get those ideas and talk to
Yeah.
themselves and just get, oh yeah, that's a good idea, or that's great. But the reality is, I learn more from someone who's more experienced than me just asking my buddy, hey,
Right.
what do you think? Imagine one ninth grader talking to another one, oh, I think you can open up a taco shop, like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
They don't know what it takes,
Yeah.
but a taco
Right.
shop owner would, or something like that.
That's awesome. You said something that I think is key. Both of you did, actually. You mentioned parents and parent support. And you mentioned the reality that every student doesn't have the parent support that really helps spark them off. Many do. And I'm going to guess most of the parents listening to this are highly involved in their kid's life. I would just like to encourage anybody listening, parents listening, your support really matters. Like, the school's one thing, but I think specifically in the middle school, junior high to high school age, kids kind of balk and they pretend like they're not listening. They truly are, and they're paying attention too. So just be a part of the process. The stakes what's at stake with going to college and the money that it costs is pretty big. It's not an end of the world thing. I mean, I know plenty of people that went and spent $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 on their college degrees and then went off and did something totally different, and they've survived, but they're still strapped with this huge college debt. I know a handful of people that wish they would have done something different, wish they would have waited to get their college degree. What are your thoughts for kids who are looking at college 2-year, 4-year, and are just like, I don't know. Like, what's your input for those kids? Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, recently, right now, so I'll just share some stats. I think we have a class of 81 seniors that are graduating in about 5 weeks. And so we just put in our stats for the year of where they're going. And that's one of the things that we do is they want to be known. And by now we have an idea where they're going. So we got 37% committed to a 4-year school, 40% committed to community college. So that's 77% of our kids going to a 2-year, 4-year school.
Okay.
And then there's, 6 going to the military, 5% going to trade school and art and beauty school. So the question you're asking is, how do you know that I should go to a 4-year school or not? And those other 40% community college, they wrestle with the question. I have kids in the top 10% of the graduating class who are choosing to go to community college, which is a great route for them because they don't know yet. They don't know what they want to do. They did so much work. They basically passed a lot of AP tests. They did really well, but they're still a little unclear. And so they had the pressure of, I need to go to a four-year school. And when they came to talk to their counselor, Mrs. Allen, who's a great person to talk to, and us at the school, our message is, if you don't know yet, then take some time to figure it out and take advantage of the community college system as well.
Right.
And I mean, not having to pay for it for 2 years
Right.
is a great deal. And so we've encouraged some of those to like take some time to think about it, ask questions, and like Mr. Jimenez was saying, go ask people who have done something that you're interested in in the field, and take that time to get your general education. So it is okay if you don't know. And parents, when I was talking earlier about parental support, a lot of our parents are very supportive. I think what I was trying to say is they may not know themselves what is the best route for the kid. My parents were very supportive, gave me everything I needed. They just didn't know.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so, and even me, like I knew a lot more so than ever, but I had to get some support from other people navigating
Right.
questions I had about my own two kids because I didn't know everything.
Right.
And so when I'm talking about parent support, I'm talking about just asking more questions and not being afraid as a parent. If you're watching, ask questions. It's okay.
Right.
These are your kids.
Right.
You're free to do that. So
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would add to that parents are a real big point of this. As much as we can influence the students, as much as the school can influence, and maybe you sent your kids here because of that influence.
Right.
But when they come home, ask them about their day. Ask them who they are. We have our two older kids, and they're constantly talking to mom. Because mom's involved in their life, asking them about their day. And sometimes, especially with the boys, they might just give you a one-word answer, but just keep asking them. Because at some point, when they have a hard day, they're going to open up.
Yep.
They're going to open up about their day, and that gets into the social and emotional side. But that's really what they need is that they need to know that there's a safe place for them to talk about their unsure future.
Right.
They may not be 100% sure where they want to go, but as long as they have your support, as long as they know that you're not sitting on your phone or sitting there watching TV all day, and you're actually involved in their life and asking them, spending 5 minutes with them, talking to them, and also just the more that you do that, the more you're going to understand who they are,
Right.
and you are going to have more wisdom just from living life, having experiences than they would.
Right.
Just because they have access to technology, and we'll get into that later about AI, but just because they can use the phone better, or the computer, whatever, does not necessarily mean that they understand it better.
Totally.
We as parents, we understand life a little bit different, and we learned it from other people.
Right.
In an age when we grew up, when there was less technology, we had to rely on relationships.
Right.
And if we can
100%.
go back to that, I think that we would be better off. Technology should enhance, not necessarily replace those interactions. And,
Right.
and we, the generation has started to allow that to be a replacement, but they do seek and crave, human interaction.
Right. Right. You guys bring up something that there's an awkward truth about school, right? And about educators. All of us in some way, shape, or form ended up going the route of education, right? I didn't get there until I was about 27 because I did a bunch of other stuff, and that's when I chose hey, this is what I want to do, and so I was beeline. So 27, that's when I decided to be a school psychologist. But all of us went the route of education. Everyone in education went the route of education, and so that's why I think it's so important for students to go talk to people that are doing the things that you want to do. Because although we might have a little bit of experience and may have dabbled here and there, ultimately we landed on educating and serving kids and serving families. That's where we landed. Not everybody can do that. No. If everybody decided to do what we do, then we'd have too many teachers and be a problem. We need all the things.
Yeah.
And so I think when we as educators are speaking with kids, we have to be just very, very transparent or truthful with ourselves, understanding that our route can't be the route for every kid. And I think that's one thing that you all do really well is encourage students and kids to do other things and to seek out other mentors. The kids that you mentioned who they didn't go to college, I know a handful of them who did not go to college at all and chose to try to go to business route. These kids are now in their 20s, almost 30, have kids. Some of them go to our school, and these handful of kids have gone out and started businesses. Well, they didn't just decide to start a business. They actually went and worked for people that did the thing that they're now doing. These kids started at the bottom. They were grunts, like carrying heavy stuff, doing trade stuff. So, I mean, I think that it is okay to not know what you want to do. I think I would add a little caveat of, in addition to just talking to people that are doing the thing that you want to go do, try to go get a job working for them. If you want to open a taco shop, go make burritos. Go to the taco shop. Like, there ain't nothing wrong. There's a million taco shops in San Diego. We make the best Mexican food in America, hands down. And if you want to open another taco shop, there's always room. I'll go to it. Yep. But like, if you want to do that, you don't just go start a taco shop. You go work for minimum wage in a taco shop. One of the things that Robert Kiyosaki says that I think is the smartest thing that he says is that when you're learning what you want to do, when you're like in that initial phase, you don't work for money. You work for an education. Yeah. And so going and getting a job at an HVAC company, going and getting a job in the electricity industry, or becoming an electrician, or being an intern or whatever, getting those minimum wage jobs when you're a kid, it's not about the money, because that's not the end game. It's about learning how that business works and watching the employer. So like, go find someone that owns a company that you like, try to work for that person. Yeah. And then make the minimum wage, the $15, $20 an hour, whatever it is, that's probably not enough to pay for gas. You're there for an education, and it's just as valuable as the education you got at school. Like, that's kind of my I would add that to the caveat. I would also say it is okay to not go to college. Like, totally okay. My brother chose a different route, and he, for the last 4 years, has been absolutely killing himself to get it to like break into the contracting industry. And just in the last year is absolutely crushing it. He's one of the more intelligent people I know. And he's finally broke through on some of these, some contracts with the VA and all this kind of stuff. And like, amazing how like with the stuff that he's doing and the size of the scope and the things that he's doing. He didn't go to college. Yeah. He just grinded. He outworked everyone. That's what he told, that's what he says. He says, I may not be the most educated one, but I will outwork everyone. And if that is your perspective, like if that is our kids' perspective, I will outwork everybody and I will fail a million times and get back up and try again. That's really the key, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
it. And I think that's the problem and the fear that most parents have with their kids not going to a school, because kids, you go to 18-year-old, you're structure, you're told what to do. And then it's like, okay, fine, you're going to take a year off. Well, like, where's your structure? And I also have just as many friends and know just as many kids who pulled that off, and they're still doing nothing, and their lives have fallen apart. So like, the key isn't go to college or not go to college. It's, are you perseverance? Do you have perseverance? Will you outwork everybody? Yeah. And just never give up. Like that's kind of it. Like, and that's why leadership program that you got back to, like one of the character things go. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, sorry for the monologue. Anything to add real quick before we get into the next question?
I would just add that what Danny was saying about being a lifelong learner, what you laid out, which you said, go to that taco shop or go to that business, and the money is not the key, and that paycheck's not the key. It's learning.
Yes.
So I think that maybe what differentiates what you're talking about, the student that takes the time off after high school versus the one that was successful or not, your brother, is he's willing to learn.
Correct.
And he's willing to adjust and pivot and keep learning and keep learning. He's waking up in the morning and going, okay, how can I learn today to get better, to be better, and to get ahead?
Right.
How can I do that? Whereas there's other people that even in high paying jobs, they will just go to work and they're done learning. Yeah. Because they have enough. They're okay with the money they make. Yeah. But then they stop learning. Correct. And so then what happens is, how do they influence their kids? As parents, we've got to constantly, like, when you go to your job, you may be in a rut. I don't know where you're at as a parent, but you may be in a rut. So maybe figure out how you can still be a lifelong learner to influence your kids. Yeah. Because if they see you wanting to learn, if they see you doing something, they're more willing to do that in their own life. Yeah. And when they take a year off, they're like, okay, my parents do this. Okay. And they're still trying to learn. They're still trying to learn things. Yeah. They're not stopping. And so, more is caught than taught is what, a lot of people say, right?
Yeah. Folks, I think that's a wrap. Andres just wrapped us up with a bow. I mean, that's there is gold. That is absolute gold. Thank you for sharing that. What were you going to say, Danny? Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, I am a product of exactly what you guys were just talking about. My parents had a quote and said, "You need to work harder than us, so you don't have to work like us."
Yeah.
And it just because they're laborers, and just my siblings, like my youngest brother, wanted to make T-shirts, got into a low-paying job, owns a T-shirt company. My other brother tinkered with motors and engines. We built some crazy stuff. He works for a huge company as an engineer of a compressor company and owns his own company for diesel trucks. And my sister, who works here, has had a journey of always wanting to be a teacher, got involved helping at the school as a parent and then as an aide, and now as a fourth grade teacher right in the building next to me, and actually graduated this weekend with her degree and everything, trying to get her master's. And like, that is just a testament of our parents telling us, work harder than everyone else.
Yeah.
You learn forever.
Yep.
And follow the dreams that you got. And no matter what you're dealt with, just go ahead and do it. And that's how we have to inspire our kids to do that.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what route. Two of them didn't even go to college.
Right.
You know, and they're doing well. So it's cool. I mean, it all comes to fruition when you really do all those things. And those are the things that we're teaching at our school.
That's awesome. Okay. Next question. Anything else to add? I mean, we can go on this one for a long time.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry. All right. Okay. What are the things that current high schoolers are having to be aware of as they make plans for high school? So this kind of like, this gets into that AI conversation that we keep kind of hinting to. So like, what are kids having to look forward at? The workforce that you and I walked into and the trajectories for college and things like that was pretty easy, where it's like you go to this degree, you get this degree, and you get this job. Well, like, it doesn't seem like colleges have necessarily changed their trajectory. But what I'm watching in real time as artificial intelligence is changing access to information, the speed that you can get good information. There are certain jobs, I believe, that are going to decrease the quantity of people that are needed in that field, right? I mean, I do think in the medical field that will be impacted. We're still going to need doctors, of course, but I don't think we're going to need as many. I think that in some way AI is going to make that more efficient. I think that lawyers and maybe even paralegals, those fields, they're going to get hit pretty hard because the access to legal information that anybody has, you don't have to go to a lawyer. You can get pretty good legal documentation. I mean, I personally, so I talk to lawyers from time to time, and having to do with education and things like that. And so what would have been a 2-hour-long conversation with a lawyer a year ago, this year, last week, I was able to get AI, kind of like walk through the legal questions that I had. And I already had like case law, case examples, all this stuff. So I kind of had my brain wrapped around what I was going to talk about. All I needed to do from the lawyer is confirm that what I had learned was correct and that the direction that I was going was correct. So what they would have been able to bill me for 2 hours worth of time, they ended up billing us for 15 minutes because I didn't need 2 hours. So like, that's an impact. That's a big deal. They're charging $200 an hour, $500 an hour, whatever lawyers charge. Like, that's a huge change. 15 minutes versus 2 hours, that's $1,000 versus, I'm not going to do that math, but versus 100 something bucks. So, like, what do you think our kids are needing to be prepared for? Because this stuff's changing. Thoughts?
Well, you want to start this one?
Yeah. I would say that look up first your job that you're wanting to pursue, whether it's through education or not, whether you need the degree or not, whatever the job is. And so there are some jobs that AI will complement that. And so just look up, is it a complement to it or is it a replacement of it? And the second one is, if it does complement it, to what degree does it complement it? So how much do I need to learn and gain access to it? So I was reading one study, and it kind of breaks it down into two categories: is complement versus not in your job, and then is it going to replace your job or not? And so it lists a lot of jobs, and this is not just from the U.S. This is across the entire world.
Okay.
So it has a list of all these jobs, and some of them it gives it a negative number because it's not really going to replace it or complement it.
Okay.
Things like a plumber.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to replace a plumber with AI. There's no computer that's going to do that. But then there's other jobs like you're talking about with lawyers and doctors. There are parts of their job that might be replaced, but I don't think it will be completely replaced because, you know, I don't know how many people would trust an AI robot to do their surgery.
Correct.
You know, you want some human interaction. You know, you can do it and you can trust it, but, you know.
We're not there yet.
Yeah. And like I mentioned a while back, you know, at the beginning of this was humans want interaction. They want, they crave that. So that part will never be replaced either. So having that lifelong learning mentality, you know, being a hard worker, and then also just having human interaction. So again, the parent interaction with the student, they're going to learn more from that interaction, you interacting with your kid, on how they're going to do that in the future.
Right.
And so when it comes to AI, when it comes to their job, there are aspects of it is how am I going to be different than this computer? How am I going to offer something more, you know, at this job than just this computer? And they might learn that from you. They might learn it from having those conversations with you.
Right.
Whereas, you know, texting and sitting there on their phones for 7 hours, 8 hours, they're not going to learn that. They're just going to learn how to interact with the computer. So have those conversations. Again, just talk to your students about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to what you're saying is, as those things are changing, asking yourself, I need a degree for this job that I want to get? Do I need a license for that? And so continually asking, like, what is it that I need? If I'm going to school, am I going to get what I need to get the job that I want?
Right.
If you don't know what you want yet, then we go back to the other thing where you ask people and give advice to what you're passionate about, what you can see yourself doing. I think focusing on some human-centered skills is huge. So like, instead of, you know, the AI will either replace or enhance or diminish whatever. I mean, we still need critical thinking, ethical reasoning. We need creativity, innovation, the communication part and having emotional intelligence instead of artificial. That's huge. So we can, you know, read a room and talk to people. And then the thing that we really talk a lot about at school is leadership. What does it mean to be a leader? How can you be a leader and collaborate and have good communication with people?
You know, hold on a second. I'm going to stop you real quick because you said something really wise, I think. You said emotional intelligence. So do you think that, like you've alluded to a bunch of times, staring at social media and having access to screens all day, every day is increasing or decreasing? This is basically rhetorical, but is increasing or decreasing human ability to have emotional intelligence? And in that factor, if kids are listening, how are they going to, how does a student separate themselves from their peers and become top of the pile when it comes to this emotional intelligence? I mean, the answer seems pretty easy, right? Put the phone down, you know, like build relationships personally, because if you are a master at building and maintaining relationships, that is going to separate you from the crowd, and it'll actually make you more able to use AI to you as a tool to get you to the front of the crowd. Right? Like, I mean, so sorry, you said that and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so smart.
I mean, you got to trust some people that you can look up to. If your conversations start with Siri, Alexa, Google, Gemini, and that's who you talk to all day long, then you're going to get what you want to get. Right. You're going to listen to what you want to hear versus what you need to hear, someone who has actual wisdom and experience and knows what to do. And so, I mean, the answer to your rhetorical question is, get off your phone and listen to others who have been there and know that experience and will be your best teacher.
It's awesome.
For sure.
You know, I asked AI, I was going to lead an artificial intelligence training with a bunch of special educators. And I prepped talking to my AI assistant, and I asked, what should I tell all of these educators about artificial intelligence? Like, what should kids be learning? And it said two things. The first thing is one that you guys said, morality. This is what AI said. AI does not have morality. Human beings have morality. You should tell them that they should teach students how to be moral, ethical people, because by using artificial intelligence, we are training the computer. And if immoral people are training the computer, AI will be immoral and evil. If moral people are using and training the computer will be moral. So focus heavily on morality, which again gets to our leadership and our character and our Esslers. Like, we work really hard on this, which is really encouraging. The second thing it said was creativity. It says, teach your students to be creative, because the rote memorization stuff is kind of getting taken over by AI. I mean, if you have access to a computer, you can get access to all the memorization and history and data and stats of you in the world. However, AI is not human creative. So I think your daughter's idea, and you and I have had this conversation, she might have like, this might be the kind of like secret in, go into the arts, go into music, go into creative type degrees, and then leverage AI to succeed in anything. But then if you're the creative one that can think out of the box and come up with new ideas and have, just these beautiful ideas and paintings and art, like stuff like that, those people might all of a sudden be the ones that can leverage AI to catch up and exceed non-creative people. That was an interesting thought that said. So, all right, so keep going. Sorry.
No, I mean,
Did I stop you?
Yeah, no, that you did not stop me. That's where I wanted to end.
Okay.
With that part of it.
Cool. Anything else to add?
I would just give you some insight on my classroom, just as an example. So here we go.
Wait, who do you teach?
So, well, AP Physics and also, that's our 12th graders. And but then also, our freshmen, I teach physical science.
Two different grade levels.
Just the polar, ends of the school. But what I've noticed is that, in general, that you as a teacher, you can follow the track of just following the curriculum.
Yep.
Just pacing it, doing it perfectly, teaching it to them, using the examples in the book, doing as a science teacher, doing all the labs out of the book, even making them fun, those labs. But here's the reality. With AI coming up, that is a replaceable skill. To just follow, follow the path, follow the curriculum, follow this. And I worked in public school, a couple of years, and that's what you do. You just follow the path. You train up, for them to go to college. You train them up to learn this material. When they're in chemistry, they learn this, and this. But here's the difference. A good teacher, just like Danny was mentioning, and just a good person in general, is going to be a lifelong learner. And so as a teacher in any profession, but this is our profession, is you have to keep learning both your students and the curriculum. Yep. So every year, I don't settle for necessarily doing the same exact thing. Now, yes, in general, we'll teach a lot of the same things, but I may change up a lab. I may change up a certain thing, and that's part of the learning thing.
Because you know the kids.
You know the kids. Yeah. And that's a big component of our school system here is we know our students. Yeah. We know them. Yeah. And as a parent, I would encourage you to do the same thing. Know your student. Be a student of your student, do that. And so in my classroom, I can be replaced if I just do the same thing year after year, because then the AI is going to learn my techniques. They're going to learn my labs, and they can just replace it. And I can just put a video on. I can get a robot that can do the same thing, and replace me. But the human connection, the changing the labs, making it, for them, that's part of the benefit of being at a charter school is you can change the curriculum to tailor it slightly towards your students and teach the same information. If a student is excited about baseball, if a student is excited about soccer, when you're teaching physics, all those things, you're teaching physics and all those things, you can integrate those things. You can have them go kick a soccer ball. Last year I had them pushing my car to figure out the weight of the car. Yeah. They get out there and they're like, oh, we get to push the teacher's car. That's awesome. Those kind of things. Incorporate those things. But you have to be a lifelong learner. And if you do that as a teacher, then you're going to inspire them to do the same thing. Right. As a parent, if you're a lifelong learner, you're going to inspire them to do the same thing.
Well, what you just said about you teaching in your classroom, that's the exact same thing. I think that may be the key right here, right? With AI is if you are just following the protocol and going from here to here in your job, in your life, in anything, if you're just lazily going from A to B to C to D, that's a replaceable skill in any job, in any career, whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee or a teacher or any of those jobs. So the way to separate yourself from artificial intelligence is be a human, right? Strive for excellence in everything and pay attention and pivot in the moment, depending on what your client, what your students, what your employer, separate yourself. Don't be the person that is I just go to work and then I drone and because that can be replaced. That's a replaceable skill. Yeah. But if you are critical thinking, and I think you're the one that told me this, that said that, or you said it today. I think you've told me before. AI will not replace critical thinking, and I think that if you're the critical thinker in the business, you will get the raises. You will be the one that is not replaced by AI, and you will be in charge of the AI that replaces everybody else. And I think that's one of the keys here: is be the person that has got skills in critical thinking, that will be the one that's trusted to run the artificial intelligence that takes the place of 10 other people. I mean, that's the reality of the thing, right? That guy.
And our students, when they come back to us and talk to us about how they got a job, they don't talk about the things they learned in the classroom. They talk about the leadership skills and the words that they learned during Senior X, the ESLers. They talk about that. They say, man, I used this word and I totally got the job. And they get excited about that. Yeah. That it wasn't the stuff they learned in the classroom. It was the leadership skills that they learned at our school.
That's awesome.
Every year at this time, Mrs. Beyer sends out a survey to the seniors. And one of the questions she asks them is, well, what is the thing that you took away the most from being at our school? And hands down, the high percentage answer is leadership. Yeah. And as much as they sometimes complain about it or don't want to go, they really value what they've learned and what they were taught. Yeah. And the conversations that they had with their teacher in there or with just others, and really learning about all the ESLers that we've talked about. Yeah. I mean, they know them verbatim. They kind of mock them at times, but when they talk about being self-directed learners, I myself have witnessed kids who wanted to get in a job interview, asked if they could use my office. I let them use the phone next to me. I listened to them talk to another adult because they want to get a job. And they say, oh, tell me some of the skills that you have learned and why are you valuable? And they'll literally say, I'm a self-directed learner. I feel like I'm a responsible community leader. I like to work hard. Great. And it's like, and I'm like smiling in the background, like, oh, where'd you get that from? And it's just cool because they understand like those are some values that they've learned, that they feel that that's who they are and what they can give to the company or to the place that they want to work. And that's so fantastic. It's cool to see what the kids are saying. And I think that is, again, what will help us balance what AI is going to bring, change, diminish, but what they cannot change is, like I said, our human-centered skills. Yeah. The way we can lead, we can love, we can decipher, and just think about the situations that we're in for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had a question in here where I think we kind of skimmed past it, but what are the pros and cons of different post-high school routes? Did you have anything to add on that? Because I know you had some notes.
I mean, there's pros and cons for everything. I think the biggest one is like if you don't know what you're doing, don't commit to a huge program or school and get in debt until you can figure it out. I think
debt's the key here, right? Like every college is an investment. This isn't an investment.
It is.
And if you invest stupidly, if you go spend, I don't know, $200,000 to become a teacher, I mean, on a monetary standpoint, that is a poor investment. Because teachers aren't going to be, that's probably not a good investment. But, so looking at how much you're putting out and then what the potential income is, I mean, that's a very, very important aspect of like going and getting degrees. Yeah.
I mean, just knowing what you want to do as far as like, I give them the question, it's like, I tell them, you're going to work the rest of your life. So you get a chance to choose what you get to do. Right. Not what you have to do, but what you get to do. It might take you a little bit longer to realize what it's going to be. But make good decisions, ask people that know. And then once you kind of figure it out, go with that plan. And if you have to pivot, like you were saying, then you're going to change and pivot, but just keep learning.
Right.
And so there's going to be pros and cons in each of them, and you're going to go through it. But don't just ask the people around you, which are your own peers, because they're all in the same boat. Yeah. Ask the people who've already been there and done that.
Awesome.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool. Covered AI. What I'm hearing, so if a parent is asking, how are you preparing students to interact with the world in the future with artificial intelligence? I think we've answered the question kind of in a roundabout way, but the way is by teaching them to be leaders, by teaching them to critically think, by teaching them morals, and by what else?
Encourage them to keep learning.
Yeah. Be lifelong learners. I mean, that's separate yourself, right? Yeah. It's less about, at this point of the game, I believe, it's less about teaching them how to go on the internet and what AI tool to use. Because where we are right now in the AI world is it's figuring out which piece of artificial intelligence is going to stick and what's going to impact in the future. Is kind of like closing your eyes and throwing a dartboard at the wall. If we remember the .com boom, like we're kind of at that place, the beginning of the .com boom, when Yahoo was owning the world, when AOL was it, and everybody thought AOL was going to be the biggest thing ever. Yeah. But like 10 years later, all of a sudden those companies are almost gone, and we've got all these other players that are the big players. So we don't know where this AI thing is going. And like, as far as stock investors go, the smart ones aren't necessarily investing in specific stocks because this is the dot-com bubble. We're going to have all these companies blow up, and then they're going to get crushed by the second and third tier of artificial intelligence. I don't know if the ones that are around are going to stick around. I don't know if this is the form that AI is going to play.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that critical thinkers that know how to build relationships, that are lifelong learners, that can separate themselves from a crowd, will be able to use that AI tool in whatever form it is in the future well, right? Like, I kind of think that's the trajectory, that's what schools should be doing right now, because we don't really know, like, we know the large language models and, you know, prompt engineering and all that kind of stuff. We know that's a good, important thing. We're not really sure where this is going because it's moving so fast, like so fast.
Yeah.
So anything else to add on to that concept?
We can learn from history, right?
Yeah.
Look when the internet first came out.
Totally.
We thought it would connect us, and it does connect us in some way, but it also disconnects people from having that face-to-face interaction.
Right.
Then the next step was, okay, let's make social media. Let's try to turn the internet into a social place, so to connect people. Well, that did the opposite.
Right.
And so AI is if we're going to learn from our history, you know, as a, you know, leading country, you know, pushing all this stuff, you know, then we're gonna be doomed to repeat history and try to replace another aspect of our lives, and then figure out, you know, down the road that it leads to suicide, it leads to depression rates, it leads to all these things. Even though our intent was good, our intent was to help society with AI, you know, and at some point, just like with social media, you know, you can use it as a tool, that's great. But if you start to use it as your whole life, and we just give access to our high schoolers, we just give them a phone, give them the social media, we just give them the AI, then, and we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it.
That's a really, really good point, because at this point, like, the pendulum on social media has swung way over here, and it's like everybody's social media, and then like all of a sudden now, even, you know, our great governor has finally admitted, like, schools and phones and social media we should not be doing this, because the stats are clear. Like the research is back. Social media, phones, screens, not good for kids. Like, there's no questions, right? So like now we're on this pendulum on the other side. I think you're right. AI is going to do the same thing. And what I see is exactly what you're saying. I see AI taking away purpose from people, because now AI is going to do it for me. And I think that to survive that, we need to, instead of looking at the new shiny tool and plugging it in everywhere and saying, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and all these things with AI, you look at your life and say, okay, what are the problems that I'm trying to solve in my life? Then, okay, is artificial the right tool for this? No, it's not, because the problem in my life has to do with my relationship with these people. AI is not going to fix that. You know, like, so look at the problems in your life and then identify what tool is the best one to solve that. Often it's not going to be artificial intelligence. If it's dealing with 40,000 emails in a day and you run a business and you're trying to figure out shipping, AI is probably going to be the tool to help you with that. You know, so anyway, if it's sales, it might not be able to help you with that, because sometimes sales needs to be this. So anyway, I think that was a good conversation. Anything to add, guys?
No, I mean, just if you're looking at history, we just have to look at 5 years ago when we were shut down and we were forced to go on the computers. You know, we had a form of AI. We had a form of intelligence where we had to like submit ourselves to a screen to have conversations with human beings. And what good did that do? Not much. And we're finally fixing and correcting and managing through all that. And so that was just right there, clear evidence that we still need human interaction. We did what we had to do to continue education. We figured we did a good job of trying to still connect and have as much human interaction as possible, but the reality is it won't replace it. You can't replace just a face-to-face human interaction that you need. And so, again, I think we've summed it all up. We need to learn how to balance it, navigate through it, and continue to be, you know, the people that we need to be to make a difference in the world.
Totally. And if you need examples of what we don't want to be, watch WALL-E.
There you go.
There you go.
We don't want to be in chairs.
Don't be the lazy people that are floating around on chairs doing nothing.
100% true. Yeah. You're so right.
All right. And on that note, think we're good.
Yeah.
Great conversation. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out. I appreciate it. Your time is very valuable. And I think that all the information you shared is going to be super helpful to parents. And I think a lot of students should listen to this one too. So
awesome.
On that note, LFCS out.
Peace out.